Welcome to my life, Chassidus Applied, episode 308. We are still haunted by the shadow of the pandemic, affecting and impacting all our lives on so many levels, including on our religious level, our faith level, our day-to-day routines and activities about shul, synagogue, minyanim, and all different rituals and traditions that are so much connected to public central places like shuls and schools and yeshivas and so on. And yet, we dig deeper, as the Jewish people have always done, and Chassidim in particular, using Torah, Chassidus, as our guide to find deeper resources, to find deeper strengths, to be creative and innovative. Because as we know, that God doesn't give us a challenge that we don't have the faculties and the resources to deal with. Anything I ask of you, I only ask of you that which you have the capacity and the power to deal with. God does not come with any type of overwhelming challenge with his creatures. It would simply be cruel to do something like that, to create human beings with their limitations, their mortality, their vulnerabilities, and then give them a challenge they cannot deal with. The fact that we feel sometimes overwhelmed is something we need to struggle with. This world is not an easy world, as we're all experiencing now, and as we've experienced throughout history. That is why our dear hope is Moshiach comes immediately. Moshiach is not just a fantastical dream of the future. It's a product and an outgrowth of all our efforts. And our efforts will bear fruit. Every good deed, every mitzvah, every sacrifice, every effort releases divine energy, which by now has accumulated billions, if not trillions and trillions, and the synergy and the exponential impact from the beginning of time. And there comes a point where it will erupt. It will erupt in a pandemic of goodness and kindness that will transform the entire world. But it won't be this type of miracle because it came through a cumulative effort. A world that continues to become more refined until it regains its balance, its harmony as it was in the beginning of creation. I come to my garden. My sister, my bride, the garden where I was initially present. But this time, because it came through all the hardships and integration and the internalization and all the hard work, it'll be even greater than it was in the initial Garden of Eden, as it was in the time of Adam and Eve, back in the beginning of time. And that's the context. And yet we go through the journey of life, the ups and downs, the twists and turns, and we have to look at the big picture because every step is a step that's a part of and closer to its destination. That's how we navigate. So in that context, just as an overall introduction, this is where we're at now. The age of the corona, we talked about corona as crown, as kesed. Kesed has a very negative side to it, as we're experiencing. But kesed, the crown, also has a very positive side. It's considered the highest level of the the highest level in divine manifestation, the kesed, the crown, higher than the internal and immanent spheres. And that's what we're looking for, to connect to that. Kesed is the interface between the divine levels and existence. But existence, to be an independent reality, there are the concealments, there is the dissonance, and all that follows, including a situation like we are in right now. So, the disruption, the destabilization out there, that's something we don't have control over. We have control of how we navigate through it. You can have a stormy sea, but you ride the ship, and you ride through the storm and through the waves, and we hold on to the deep strengths that we gain from faith, from trust, from looking at the big picture, from our values, from the love we give, the service, the good deeds, the prayers, and the Torah. the three pillars upon which a world stands. Now you could have said, a few months ago, someone could have said, what do you mean? The pillars of the world is economy, politics, different industries. Today we see those industries, the economy, they themselves need pillars. And what are the three pillars? On three pillars the entire world rests and stands. Torah, cognitive, training and conditioning. Aveda, Ezu Aveda Shebelev, the service of the heart. Prayer, Zui Tefillah, prayer. Emotional conditioning. And the third is Gemilas Chasodim, bestowing kindness, doing acts of kindness. Action conditioning good acts. When you do those three and you embrace them in a very deliberate way, not mechanically, that creates pillars upon which the world, the global world, and the microcosm, which is Olam Katan Ze Adam, that a human being is a small universe, a universe, a microcosm. Upon those three pillars rests. Well, we're now in the week of Lag B'Omer. Monday night, Tuesday will be the 33rd day of Emer. So we'll talk about that. We're in the week of Parshas Behar-Bechukosei, the last two chapters of the third book of the Torah, Leviticus, Vayikra. So we'll discuss about that. Chassidus Applied to those two timely matters, as well as always going through different questions. Most are right now we're addressing are the ones connected to our period in time, which of course really touches the entire human condition because there's so many areas of life that's impacted. Whether it's topics we spoke about last week or the previous weeks, how we see God, how we see Torah, how do we look at loneliness, how do we look at family. It really is an opportunity to revisit and evaluate every aspect of our lives. Besides the fact that we have more time and we have less commuting and less traveling and so on, if at all, we also are more introspective as our institutions have paused to some extent, sometimes more than others, different people, different levels. So all the questions about that we are challenged with, that this program has been dedicated to addressing from a Chassidus point of view, insight into the psychological, the emotional, the personal issues that each of us deals with are now all so much more pronounced. And quite obvious to me and to us is literally the hundreds and hundreds of questions that keep pouring in. And I don't think it's just questions. I think a question is also a need to reach, a need to try to resolve, to find some direction, some clarity amidst so much unknown. So I'm really honored to be able to engage in that fashion, to be able to intersect, address concerns that all of us have, and many of you have articulated. So just a little few announcements in that regard. As always, you can submit any question totally confidentially, totally anonymously at chassidusapply.com/ask. You'll see the links right there. You can also access there all previous episodes, the archives. You can find the essays that have been written this year and the previous, not this year's contest yet, I'll mention that in a moment, previous year's essays, contributions from people from everywhere, all walks of life, applying Chassidus to real life situations, and many more resources. I resume my daily class in Ayin Beis. It's now by Zoom, resumed by Zoom, and on Ayin Beis. So you can also, if you'd like the link, just send us a text or an email, and we'll send you the link. It's open to the public. It's a live Zoom class every morning, Eastern Standard Time, 9:30 a.m., on Sundays, 10:30 a.m. And more resources that you can find at chassidusapply.com. In addition, we've been literally inundated and on overdrive, creating and producing programs on a daily basis. We're redoing our entire calendar, our entire schedule, so that will soon be up, probably this week. But you can find everything at meaningfullife.com/corona. Go to our calendar. You can see the programs we did this past week. We're going to be doing this coming week. And I'll just announce a few of them. This past week, We discussed, can you be alone? One of the highlights. I also today actually did a class with Rabbi Yitzi Horowitz, California, called basically lessons from Pesach Sheni that are relevant to our times. Yeah. And distant but close, that's how we titled it. This coming week, I'll be a host at the Hatzalathon that begins Monday night and Tuesday, Lag B'Omer. And Wednesday, I'll be doing a few programs. One of them called Quarantined and Addicted. Can I break free? Dealing with the challenges of addiction, different forms of addiction. I'll also be doing one for many communities that is called Quarantine, Lag B'Omer and Quarantine, lessons we can learn from Rashbi in times of upheaval. And many more that you can find online, as well as a daily spiritual antidote, a 3-minute video that is on all the platforms, WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can get it by email. That literally is what the name suggests, that with all the negative energy out there, to create some positive energy of bolstering and boosting our spiritual and psychological and emotional immunity. You can easily subscribe to that. Okay. And that's just part of what we're offering. And it's really meant to serve the needs of people, especially in this time when so much of our, as I said, our regular routines have been disrupted, and we need many more resources than ever before. More resources than ever before. So with that, I want to also dedicate this program to all those that are in need of recovery. May they have a complete refuah shlema, a quick one. And God protect everybody in this time. May this magef, this pandemic already come to an end. And we should only be left with the strengths that we learned and gained from this challenging period. Regarding the essay contest. So the essay contest, as usually, did conclude right before, a month before Pesach. However, because of the pandemic, things have slowed down, judging and so on. But I assure you, I give you my total assurance, every person's essay has been read or will be read, and we will evaluate them, and the winners will be announced. It's just delayed. Please bear with us, and hope you understand. But we respect and we value the time and effort you invested in it. So don't let your heart be in any way disturbed by this. We will do our part. Just give us a little time. Okay. Now with that, let me see. Did I cover everything I wanted to cover as far as housekeeping goes? I believe so. So with that, let's begin with Lag B'Omer. Lag B'Omer is a good place to begin. It's on Tuesday, Monday night, and we know it's a very special day. The Rebbe would always emphasize two main things on Lag B'Omer. Number one, it's the day when the plague, the epidemic that took 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva's students, due to the fact that Leinogu COVID Zebazeh, they did not behave with respect to one another, that plague came to an end on Lag B'Omer. So that's a big simcha. That's what Lag B'Omer, all the restrictions that we have in the earlier days of Omer, weddings, music, stop. There are different customs after Lag B'Omer. Chabad custom continues after Lag B'Omer, and there's another reasons there are reasons for that, even if it stopped. Why? But Lag B'Omer, the day of celebration. The second element is Yom Simchosei Shel Rashbi. It's the joy and celebration of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, where he explicitly asked his students in the Idre Zuta, in Zohar Hazinu, relates all the events that happened the day of Rashbi's Histalkus on Lag B'Omer, where he asked that it should be a day of Simcha. He commanded with very strong terms. So ever since, that's exactly what his students, and then every generation after that, fulfilling Rashbi's request. But we see Rashbi, there were many great Tanoim. Rashbi was a student of Rabbi Akiva. Kula liba de Rabbi Akiva. The entire Sheir Shabbat Peh, the entire Old Torah goes according to Rabbi Akiva. And others, Rabbi Meir, the Chachamim. I mean, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbeinu Hanossi, Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, Rabbeinu HaKodesh. Yet Rashbi seems to stand out. How many do we know of a yahrzeit even of any of the others? You can look it up, but that level? And pilgrimages in Miran, the Arizal would go there for 3 days every year. This year, of course, that's going to be quite limited. But that doesn't mean we don't do a spiritual pilgrimage. There's something about Rashbi and Lag B'Omer. The Rebbe, of course, instituted, based on the customs through history, the customs of what customs? To do things with children, celebrate with children, that we go out into the fields with children. And the Rebbe instituted the parade, the Lag B'Omer parade. Whenever Lag B'Omer was on a Sunday, it was a parade Sunday because the schools were closed. Later they had parades even during the week, but the Rebbe came out primarily on Sunday. A number of times we have the footage, the images, the videos. The Rebbe in his full glory. HaMelech b'tifarte. So Lag B'Omer has a very particular power, but many of us don't know what it is. It's like a mysterious day. The two items are connected to each other, and it's particularly relevant to our time. Rashbi stood out from all the other Tanoim, the other sages of his time, in the words of Rabbi Akiva's teacher, that the qualities of Rashbi outshined all others. This wasn't a competition, it's just that he had something unique. What was unique about Rashbi? So we have many stories in the Talmud, but we have stories about many different great leaders. Rashbi combined Pnimius haTorah and Nigla haTorah. He joined them together. He was, of course, a great Talmudic sage, and he was also essentially the father of Jewish mysticism, the author of the Zohar. He didn't write it himself, his student Rab Abba wrote it, but Rashbi was Mara de Pnimius haTorah. So he combined the soul and body, in the words of the Zohar, Nishmosa Daraisa, Gufa Daraisa. He was a unifying force. Now, you could say, what, others didn't combine the two? Isn't it a body and soul? But not in a revealed way. There were many that knew the secrets, but it was somewhat two different schools. Though they both complement each other, but the involvement in the mechanics of Judaism, the body of Judaism, which was the primary study of Talmud, until this day is the primary study, was mainstream. And the other was Yechidei Gula, individuals who knew the inner dynamics, the inner workings. It would come only later, the time of the Arizal, mitzvah legal zesa chochma, as the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya. That the Arizal said, now it's a mitzvah to start revealing that inner wisdom. And of course, with the generations subsequent to that, finally the Baal Shem Tov, Yafutza ma'asecha chutza, as Moshiach told Baal Shem Tov, that's when Moshiach will come. The spreading of your wellsprings, the Magid of the Mizrich, and then the Alter Rebbe and the generations afterwards, chutza she'en chutza mimeno. The reasons are not necessarily here to go and elaborate, but briefly, because Pnimius haTorah was always the Pnimius. It was always the soul. But there was a time in history where you picked up the soul simply by the smell of chicken soup in your grandmother's kitchen. The insulated and pure and innocent environment for so many years was very untainted by the secular world around it. But when things changed, one of the reasons became darker, you need deeper light, you need deeper resources, as I said earlier about the pandemic. Secondly, as we get closer to Moshiach, Friday you begin tasting of the foods and of the foods of Shabbos. Teros Mashiach is the time of Shabbos. So Friday in the sixth millennia, which we're in right now, began the revelation of Geula, and they're interconnected. When you need to dig deeper resources, you get the Torah of Mashiach to counter the deeper darkness of these later years. All this applies directly to us, of course, because we're dealing with a certain dark challenge right now. But let's take it further. Rashbi, besides being that unifying force, we see certain distinguished qualities and virtues he had, to just mention just a few, that are connected very much to healing and to challenges. So firstly, you know Rashbi, there was a decree by the emperor not to study Torah, but he was teaching Torah, so he was sentenced to death, but he ran away and lived in a cave with his son Rabbi Elazar for 12 years. So he was quarantined. What did he use that time for? to access the deepest teachings of Torah, both outer and inner dimension of Torah, the body and soul. And when he came out, was so refined to the point that he could not even tolerate the mundane and petty and menial involvements of the world around him. And it says when him and Rabbi Elazar, wherever they went, it began to burn, physically or figuratively. So Hashem said, no, you need one more year, one more maturing year, 13th year back into the cave. And this time, whatever was afflicted, Rashbi healed. He was a healer. Because God said, I don't want you to destroy the world I created. I want you to refine and elevate it. Today we see exposed suddenly the pettiness that people were involved in, the nonsense even, superficiality of a material world. All these institutions. Were they necessary? Are they necessary in our lives? No, they're not fundamentally necessary for being a human being, for fulfilling your mission. They were entertaining. They were means to an end at best. But the job is not to undermine that, not to destroy it, it's to heal it. And we have then the few statements that I'll quote. Rashbi. So I mentioned healing. We have Machatzti v'ani erpa, the Rebbe Marash in his Maimorim. Machatzti. I have struck, God said. Machatzti, meaning like from the word mechitza, but it's also from the word an affliction. I have afflicted, v'ani erpa, and I shall heal. Similar to Ani Hashem Reifecha, I, God, am your healer. V'ani erpa, says the Rebbe Marash. It's a healing that's retroactive. So again, we see the concept of healing, to the point that the Siddur from Dach, the Mittler Rebbe, Siddur im Dach, that's from the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe, so he uses Lag B'Omer when he speaks about Lag B'Omer. Eid Hagal Hazeh. When Yaakov tells Lavan, Eid Hagal, Gal is the letters Lag, Lamed Gimel. Eid Hagal Hazeh. When they part ways, he says, this Gal, this mound, will be a witness about the agreement, the covenant we make. So he explains that Lag and Gal is a type of bridge. Machatzti v'ani erpa. To take it further, it says in the Gemara, Sri Maimor Chazal, Kedai Rab Shimon lismoch alav b'shas adchak. It's worthwhile. It's a good idea. Worthy to rely on Rab Shimon ben Yochai b'shas hadchak, which means in a difficult time, in a tough time, when we feel pressured. The Munketcher Elazar, the Munketcher Rebbe, says b'shas hadchak is referring to the chak of Golus. And Rashbi says, Yechelni lifter kol ha'ela min adin. I'm able to free and redeem the entire world from din, from severities, from judgments. You tell me. Every one of these statements is relevant this year more than ever. So Lag B'Omer is something that now, every year it's relevant. But now it's so obvious. We need the healing. We need Rashbi's support to be able to free us from severities and from tchak, from pressures and difficulties. To open up doors and channels, which is what the Rashbi does. The Medrash says Rashbi was Peked HaKoros. He would open the wombs of barren women, meaning he would give them a blessing. And even though they were infertile, they were blessed with children, which is essentially opening up blocked channels. The Rebbe one year, Lag B'Omer, I think Tavshin Mem, said, this doesn't mean only physically, also psychologically. When parents and children have some type of rift, a block between them, so Lag B'Omer, Rashbi has the power to repair the rift. And there's more. I'm just giving a short taste of it. So Lag B'Omer has tremendous power. The power of unity, the power of healing, the power of bridging, all come together. And they create the blessings to overcome any challenge, including the one we're facing right now. So we can turn to Rashbi and say, it says, Kedai lismach alav b'shas adchak. We can rely on you. We want to rely on you. Open up new channels, bring a new healing, new blessings. Lifter, kol ha'elam min adin. So do exactly that. Redeem us from any turn but din and severities. Open up channels. So may that actually be the case. Let us make a keli on Lag B'Omer through unity, through avos Yisrael, and achdus Yisrael. Love and achdus. That was the cardinal mitzvah in the Torah. Rabbi Akiva, the teacher of Rashbi, said, "V'ahavta recha kamocha, zeh klal gadol b'Torah." This is a fundamental principle of Torah. And Rashbi lived up to it, and we see in Rashbi's life, he was one of the students that remained after the epidemic, meaning that he did honor, that there was avos Yisrael. He personified it. And we find indeed in Zohar stories with Rashbi's great avos Yisrael. His statement, Anan b'chvivusa talya milsa. We are dependent on chvivusa, on love. All success is dependent on chvivusa talya milsa. And he brings 3 psukim, all about Ava, our love of God, and 2 verses that talk about God's love of us. And then, of course, Rashbi's statement, when there was a drought, a famine, Rashbi said Torah, on which posuk? Hinemate v'manoim shevas achim gam yochad. How beautiful, how pleasurable, how delightful it is to see brothers sitting together. That unity draws down blessings. When we're one, that's the keli, machzik brocha, hashalom. The keli, the container. The only container that truly for blessing is shalom, is complete unity. So you tell me how many lessons are there in all of these statements. To sum up, it's our avos Yisrael, it's our love for each other, unconditional, living up to the standards of Rashbi. And that unity is not just among peoples, the unity in all parts of Torah, the outer dimension, the inner dimension. Same thing when we love others. You love their neshama, so then you can really appreciate them in ways that sometimes on a body level you can't appreciate. So Rashbi is this unifying force, the unifying of all sections of Torah, unifying of all types of Yidden, and indeed you see that Rashbi celebrated by everybody. That's Lag B'Omer. A little taste of it. And children have particular power, because children, Rashbi would teach, it says in Zohar, that children will learn Pnimius haTorah when Moshiach comes. Nitzanim nir ba'aretz, and different expressions that talk about children. Lag B'Omer, I believe it was Tafshin Mem Vov. That would be 1986. We prepared a sikha that Rebbe edited with all the details about the children's connection to Lag B'Omer. You can check that out. I think it's printed probably in volume, L'Kutei Sichos volume either 32 or 27. Probably 27. So, my friends, Lag B'Omer has tremendous power. And where we access the schus, the different songs we sing as we honor Rashbi, that he should intervene on our behalf. And finally send us only brachas, shower us with brachas, and healing of all sorts, beginning with the virus and everything else, the fears, the unknowns, and so on. It's also the week of Parsha Behar-Bechukosei, which is the end of Sefer Vayikra. Just one short, quick thing on Behar-Bechukosei. So these 2 chapters come together, but Bechukosei specifically has in it some of the Teichacha. Not as extensive as it is in Parsha Kisaveh, but you still have. You have the negative statements that when you read them ostensibly, sound negative. And yet, we're told they're all really brachas. So even when there's a negative virus affecting us, there's a deeper bracha to be found within it. So Parsha Bechukosei teaches us that secret. Connected also to Rashbi. Rashbi sent his son Rabbi Lozo to go get a blessing by the Chachomim in the West. And he went. To his shock and dismay, the words they said to him didn't sound like blessings. So he came back and told his father, they said to me horrible things. His His father said, what did they say? And he started telling him. So his father said, no. These are really blessings. They're such deep blessings, they can only be expressed in a negative way. Different explanations given for this. Why did they have to say it in that way? Some say because they foresaw certain negative things. They wanted to nullify that, so they had to use those words, but the meaning was a deeper one. Chassidus brings, look at the Untitled Chapter on this week's parsha. Chassidus brings the idea from the that's a Gemara Moed Cotton, Daf Ches. So Chassidus brings that's Chsadim Nistarim, says the Alter Rebbe. It's deeper love. That is so deep, it can only be expressed in terms that seem negative. It's like when the Mittler Rebbe heard the Alter Rebbe say, read the Torah, he only heard blessings. Because that's the Pnimius of it. So the chapter also gives us strength to take every negative and turn it to a positive. That the only remnant from the virus should be the antibodies, the strength, the immunity that we built up, that will protect us and help us grow and thrive. Okay. So there are two questions on Lag B'Omer. Someone asked, what's the connection of all the special things that were seen on Lag B'Omer by the Rebbe, particularly the parades and display of Jewish pride with the bitachon of the day? I believe I explained it, but I'll spell it out even stronger. The parade was essentially bringing the children together. They used to go out in the feld. That was the expression, go to the field. Sometimes a Mittler Rebbe. Schools would take their children. They would play with hakeshes. Hakeshes is a bow and arrow. Different reasons for that as well. It's brought into different svarim. The Rebbe instituted a parade that was I can say a contemporary way to bring children together from all different schools, different communities. Celebrate, as the Rashbi asked, Simchosei of his day. That's the connection. It's a celebration. And a celebration through achdus, which is the second aspect of Lag B'Omer, the end of the plague that came from the opposite of unity. And the Rebbe's, this is essentially the theme of the Rebbe's words, almost every Lag B'Omer parade. Different variations, different ways, and so on. Jewish pride. So you don't need an excuse to celebrate Jewish pride, but here, Rashbi represents the best of what Yiddishkeit is about. He went through great challenges and came through stronger, came out stronger. So we teach that to the children as well. Quarantine today. Rashbi was in quarantine and came out this person who healed and corrected and repaired the world. So that's the basic answer. Who was the founder of Pnimius haTorah Chassidus? Rab Shimon bar Yochai, the Baal Shem Tov, or the Alter Rebbe? Well, the founder of Pnimius haTorah Chassidus is the Eibishter. There's only one Torah and there's only one God. Moshiach Kibel Torah Messinai, he received all the Torah. There are no human founders. You can associate certain teachers who perpetuated, who focused on, whose primary teachings were a certain, we say Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, he compiled the Mishnah, but he wasn't the only one. Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, was the first conduit. Then you find in different schools of thought, Shammai and Hillel, and you have different schools, that Rav and Shmuel. Each one had their mastery. This one was a mastery b'mamonis, this one b'yisura, in laws of what's mutter, what's allowed, what's not allowed. This one was in financial law. The Torah comes from Hashem. In the stages of how Pnimius haTorah was revealed, so we know by Matan Torah Pnimius haTorah was revealed. They saw all kinds of mystical sights and visions at Sinai. Rashbi is credited because he organized it in the book of the Zohar. He taught it to his students. So he's called, I don't want to call him the father, but he's like one of the not founder, but master. In Samach Vov, in the Maimer of Lag B'Omer Tafresh Samach Vov, Sfartem Lechem, he says Lag B'Omer is Matan Torah of Pnimius haTorah. Because that's the day, B'chat Katir is Katana, that's the day when Rashbi was nostalgic and became connected. He said, in one knot I was bound with God. Talking about his last moments. So Lag B'Omer is Matan Torah of Pnimius haTorah. Now we know there's further stages. There's a whole ishtalshlus. If you look in the Agdom of Shemer Amunim from Rabbi Yosef Irgas, there's a very good introduction, the whole evolution and process of Pnimius haTorah from the beginning of time all the way to our time. But then you move forward. Fast forward to the Arizal, another great master, who brought it to another level. Mitzvah legal is to reveal. And then the Baal Shem Tov. But we say Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, Yutes Kislev. Sometimes it says the Simchas Torah of Pnimius haTorah. So there's different words used. It's really different stages. Kabbalah, there's Chassidus, bringing Kabbalah into understanding and comprehension of Chabad. So it's not a contradiction. Each one played their role. But Baal Shem Tov is the founder of Chassidus Klolis, the Alter Rebbe of Chassidus Chabad. Okay. Since we're talking about achdus, and we discussed it last week, so here came a question. This is the question. Is it sincere or disingenuous to call for achdus and state that it's on my terms? So this is a time where we're looking to unite. We're not looking to criticize. We're not looking to find our differences, but find things we have in common. And yet, a call for achdus did take place by shluchim and by others, and it's very appropriate. Unity is always a source of blessing, especially when there's an pandemic. But some people are writing to me, and I'm not even reading all the harsher, more critical, and even cynical statements. Yes, it's very nice people call achdus until they have to do something a little different or go out of their comfort zone. So let's go to the pasuk. V'havtarecha kamocha. Is there a condition for loving another? Klal Godel B'Teira. There's no condition. And even if there's certain conditions, the Alter Rebbe already in Perek Lamed Beis and Tanya, where he talks about those that you're supposed to hate because of their rishus, because of their cruel wickedness. The end of chapter 32, he already explains that. So Avos Yisrael is unconditional. It never says, I love you on my terms. Even someone who's a criminal, you're supposed to love. Even a Rasha, as the Rebbe brings in Kuntus Avos Yisrael from the Ramak, from other Sfarim. That doesn't mean you love his cruelty, his wickedness. May the sins be erased, not the sinner. Because everyone has a neshama. You're loving the neshama. Now, if a person behaves in a way that the Torah advocates that they need to be disciplined, that's not a contradiction. Even when you discipline them. Even when you're judging them, it's in order to save. And who are we to judge altogether? It's only God that does that. So obviously Yisrael is unconditional. If someone says, I love you, but here are my terms, that's not how you love. I love you unconditionally. Let's sit down and talk, and let's not begin with any preconceived notions. As soon as you hear terms, right away, of course, everyone skeptic guts and says, because you want to stay in power. You want it to be on your terms. And you'll dress it up. It's not my power, it's the Rebbe's power. The Torah's power. No one's suggesting that we break Torah for Avos Yisrael. That's not what we're discussing. Even though, frankly, when it comes down to case by case, sometimes not break Torah chas v'shalom, but sometimes you have to compromise, and sometimes you have to be mavater, sometimes you have to overlook and let things pass. Not everything has to become a war. Because right away you say, isn't a gay David? So that's why we have a Torah. The Torah tells us when two people have a disagreement and they want to love each other in a kind way, no one should come with conditions. They say, let them go in front of a third objective party. Let it be a mediator. It doesn't have to be a din Torah. And present. And if you're really sincere about your Avos Yisrael, listen to what the third party says. But people not necessarily trusting. Will the third party really understand? So those that are in power, they're v'chazokeh, they're muchzokim. Why would they want to do that? Why would they want to give up? That's what, of course, the question is. If we really want Avos Achdus Yisrael, yes, we're going to have to look a little deeper. And it can't be beginning on my terms or on certain terms. Obviously, no one's going to say my terms. It's going to be on terms the Torah or the Rebbe established. That has to be looked at always with a little, let's call it this, a little wariness, because that could have an agenda. That doesn't mean we ignore the Torah's terms or the Rebbe's terms. We need to look at it objectively. And the first thing in every emes is you need to acknowledge that you may not be objective. The other person is also not objective. Find an objective party. Okay. The next question. How could we be fearless? How can we be fearless in frightening times? Hello, Rabbi Jacobson. A good zimmer to you and yours. Okay, I guess it's the beginning of summer. In today's chitas, this was written a few weeks ago. For kids, the following is written, the Rebbe's kapitel. David HaMelech said about that time, Zmiris hoyelichukecha be'eves megurai. Hashem, your Torah was like songs to me. Brought me comfort, that means, in the place where I was afraid. Chassidus explains that David HaMelech wasn't just saying that learning Torah made him feel good. He was saying that because of what Torah is, it is able to bring a person comfort in a frightening time, scary time. The Torah is the source of everything that happens in the world. By connecting to the Torah, the source of even those scary things happening to him, he was able to feel higher than them in a certain way and didn't need to feel afraid. This writer is saying, Sid Tilim El Yosef Yitzchak Hashalom, Kapitel Kuf Yutes, and footnotes to Maimonim cited in Hesofis in the back. Okay, thank you. Please address how we could be fearless in scary times by feeling higher than the scary events and connecting to Torah in general as David HaMelech teaches. Chodesh Tev, may the Rosh Tevis of the month of Iyar be actualized such that the diseases I have placed on Egypt I will not place on you, for I am God, your healer. Ani Hashem Refech. Amen. Okay. Well, as long as you dwell in the world of fear, obviously the question is, Ein chovish mater esatzmei, a person who's trapped, cannot free themselves. You've defined yourself by the fears you have. So clearly, to get beyond them, you say to go higher, you need to connect to something that pulls you up. Someone throws you a rope. What is that, the equivalent of that in an emotional and personal psychological sense? That someone that is not trapped as you are is able to give you a hand. That's, of course, what the Torah does. Maybe refuah, it brings healing for that reason. That's what a Rebbe does. That's what a Rav, a mentor does. Could be a friend, could be loved ones. So the first thing to get out of fear is you can't fight fear. You have to avoid it. Or better said, you have to rise above it. You have to transcend it. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe said to his captors, the story of Yud Beis Tammuz, this gun, this toy could only frighten someone that has one God, one world and many gods, but not someone who has one God and many worlds. What was he saying? Not that he wants to, God forbid, die, but you can't frighten me because I have a lot more. It's a diversification. You put all your eggs in one material basket, and when that's taken away, what are you left with? So fear is defined by our perspectives. Introduce something new. Ein lecha ben chayrin el mish esek b'Torah, the Mishnah says. You don't have a free person unless they're esek in Torah. Interestingly, the Rebbe once pointed out, it doesn't say everyone who learns Torah is free. But you can't have freedom without Torah. Why? Because Torah gives you a perspective of a different horizons. You learn science, you learn mathematics, you learn politics, economics, literature, history, you name it. All of that is part of the world. That's part of the systems and institutions. You learn Torah. Torah is chachmos v'ritzein shel Kadosh Baruch Hu shashuyim. Or in this, what David calls midas ha'yelichukecha. That lifts you up to how God sees existence. That's what we need. When you have that, that can get you out of human fright, out of human fear. So it's two things. Connecting to God through His Torah and mitzvahs. Two, actually three things. Two, finding the Rav, the mentor that can help you. And three, being of service to others. You can almost say it's Torah, Vedic, Milos Chasadim in a way. These things give you strength to transcend. It doesn't eliminate the problem, but it transcends. In more secular psychological terms, Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, man's search for meaning, said that those that had that extra faith, the purpose of life, the meaning in life, they didn't suffer less, but they had more tools to rise above it. Okay. A question that follows up, that continues, is bitachon. How to strengthen bitachon, which means trust in God, when we are losing our jobs. As some parnasa chizuk may be required in upcoming sessions, because we know, millions of people have been laid off, and who knows what's coming tomorrow, after Shabbos. God protect us all. So people are concerned, for good reason. What is the correct balance bitachon and ishtadlus? With all these new challenges, this question looms large. The balance between trust in God and ishtadlus, making an effort. If I invest more energies in my business, will I gain more profit? If my year's salary is decided on Rosh Hashanah, why work more than the bare minimum? Thank you very much for your insightful perspective. The Mefarshim and Shulchan Aruch that talk about epidemics, plague, which is related somewhat, speak about this. They say, what's the point of going halach in Yeredeya, Cheshem Mishpat, that talks about the din of having to go inside and quarantine yourself in the time of an epidemic. So the Mefarshim there say, I think based on the Rashbash, a tshuva from Rashbash, what difference does it make? If your life was designated Rosh Hashanah, so it's not going to help if you quarantine yourself. It's already been determined. It makes it very clear, it's been determined, but it could always change. It could change for the better, it could change for the worse. Hishtadlus and Teva always remains, the Ramor says not to rely on a miracle at the time of the epidemic. In general, in Shem Chanalanes. So the answer still remains the same. Yes, you may not be able to control whether your boss and your employer may lay you off. That's an additional challenge. But just like always we need ishtadlus now too. You can't just say, since there's such an economic crisis, and people are quarantined, and so many businesses have closed, or so many businesses are out of functioning now, I can go to sleep. No, you make efforts, be creative. Many of us are looking online how to do things. I run an organizations I should say, to find creative ways to raise money, support the staff, and so on. So ishtadlus is always necessary. You may say that now we need even deeper bitachon. Remember, bitachon goes hand in hand. Because you trust God, that's why you're doing ishtadlus. You're not doing ishtadlus because, you know what, plan B. In case my trust doesn't work, I have a second plan. God said, Hamayim b'cheilom and v'zereya. The Gemara says, "V'hoya munas itecha." What's a munas itecha? That each of the 6 sections of the Talmud, 6 storim, so zeroyim, which is planting, is connected to amunas. Why? Because the one who has faith in God and plants. What does it have to do with faith in God? Faith in God would be things that are not bound by natural structures, by natural laws. Here you're planting. God created the land in a way that if you plant and sow the fields, and then you water it and so on, you can harvest. What do you need amunah? Says Chassidus, is very simple, because it's the amunah. God made it that way. You still need God for it. He just mislabish it. He manifested it in a natural structure. So it's part of bitachon and amunah in Hashem, faith and trust in God, that tells you, I gave you resources. That's also part of the trust. To trust the resources God gave you. So it goes hand in hand. There are times where it may be more difficult. All the ishtadlus may not yield as it would have in the past, so we still make the effort to be more creative, more innovative. At the same time, yes, we pray to God more and we're more sincere because we see that our plans are not necessarily enough. It's not kechi v'eitzim yadi we see today. It's not your power, your schedule. You're not in control. God is in control. But it goes hand in hand with our efforts. Okay, so whatever is designated Rosh Hashanah, so first of all, in Kuntus Samayim and other places, Chassidus says you still need to pray every day to bring it down into the needs of that day and the way you want it to bring it down. Rosh Hashanah is in general a designation. And then there's a second answer, it can change. It's not etched in stone. It's not black and white. Rosh Hashanah overall designates who will live, who will not live, and the source of parnos. Okay. Another question in the area of bitachon and trust. What can we do to hold on to faith in Moshiach after so many disappointments? So many people felt this Pesach, Moshiach would come after all this. So, hello, Rabbi. I had a question regarding Moshiach. How should I maintain the belief and feeling that Moshiach is coming today and not get burnt out by such a belief? I think we all can relate to the following. When entering the first days, and especially the second days of Pesach, I had this feeling that Moshiach is literally going to arrive. I even wanted to push away such a feeling because I didn't want to disappoint myself Moshiach wouldn't arrive. I was looking through the archive to see if you addressed this directly. I couldn't seem to find an episode. Can you please speak about this? Another questioner. Hi, Rabbi. Thanks for your consistently great classes. When this whole COVID-19 story unfolded, schools closed, countries went on lockdown, no minyanim, etc. It seems like the world was getting ready and cleaning itself for Mashiach. Erev Pesach, the air was tangibly different. We all thought that Mashiach is coming. Then came Mashiach Suda, the last day of Pesach. We all felt the same. Alas, still nothing. It's a little bit disheartening. Why do you think Hashem and our sages made such a big thing about Mashiach? It's in our davening on many occasions, Rambam's principles of faith, countless prophecies, etc. Not to mention the Rebbe's immense koch in Mashiach, and that is his imminence, imminent coming. Wouldn't it be easier not to have such great expectations and anticipations? Maybe like the Litvish Avodah is better, and that if Mashiach comes, great. If not, we continue to serve Hashem as per usual. I'm happy for you to condense my long-winded question. Take care. And yet one more question in this vein. Thank you for your weekly class. I am one to be a strong believer, and I'm very passionate about having bitachon in Hashem, trust in God. My thought process often is to think about how kind Hashem is to me and see the good that He has given me in my life, how He brought me to this place so far, etc. I like to think about the good that God does for us. During davening, when we praise Hashem and talk about how great He is, I really sense it. Nowadays, though, with this whole virus outbreak, I'm having a hard time with my belief in Hashem, in the fact that He is kind and loves us, etc. There's so much craziness going on, too many lives taken. This quarantine is getting a bit much. And as much as I can tell myself it is all for the good, I just can't seem to believe the words I say in davening, that He is a kind Father, praiseworthy, etc. This is really not my nature. I love to think about how much Hashem loves us and does for us. There's just something blocking me now from really believing it. I can't convince myself He loves us. I know He does. My mind knows He does. My heart doesn't feel it. I'm not even sure what my question is. I just know that I'd like to think about Hashem in a better light and feel like I can connect to Him more. And like I said, I feel like something is holding me back from that. How can I settle this all? Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Speaks for itself, this letter. I believe many, many people, thousands of people could have written it. And it echoes and reflects what so many of us feel. And I really appreciate your sincerity. And even the pain that you feel you can't see how God loves us, though you believe it. And the same with the other questions about Mashiach. Look, I've always been very straight and blunt and candid and honest. And I want to say is this. We don't have an answer. We don't have a direct answer why God would take such beautiful people in this pandemic. I've looked in thousands of letters of the Rebbe, in texts before the Rebbe, the previous Rebbeim, and before that. We go back thousands of years. You always come back to one thing, silence. Vayidem Aaron is silent when his sons are killed. Shteik kachol b'machshava is told to Moshe. and the angels, be silent. That's what arose in my mind when the 10 martyrs were brutally massacred. Shtika, silence. That is an answer. It's an answer that we are not God, and we cannot fathom God's plan. It seems actually quite logical. It's still painful, because we love to have control. We love to have an understanding. That's how we're wired. But if God doesn't mean anything, there is a God that is a planner. When he tells Eov those memorable words, he says to Eov, to Job, the great sufferer, were you there when I created heaven and earth that you asked me these questions about why the good suffer, why there's pain and suffering in this world? What is God saying? You didn't create the heaven and earth. You're not the choreographer. You're not the cosmic engineer. I'll take it a step further. Did you ask me why I created the world, or you only ask me when there's pain? Did you ask me why there's joy, why there's birth, why there's life, why there's laughter and happiness? No. We ask the question when we are bothered, which I understand. I'm paraphrasing. God says, I understand, I wired you that way. You cry. And I told you, haTorah, you're supposed to cry and grieve. When a person died, we said, Shiva, you don't say faith and trust. No, nothing happened. It's all for the good. But at the end of the day, there is one creator. So coming to peace with that is very soothing, actually. It's still disturbing. It's still unsettling. But it's saying, you know what, there's a certain area, maybe we just stop trying to understand why. Now you could say that's the case, we become passive victims. No. There's a much bigger question to ask. Not why, but solivos, why, what for? What is it meant to teach me? What am I supposed to do about it? That's an empowering statement. Not to know why does not disempower you. It means you don't know the mysteries. As a matter of fact, it could make a lot of sense, as I said. What you have to ask yourself is, what am I? I'm a partner with God. He put me on earth. He's allowing the suffering to happen around me. I believe in Moshiach. I anticipated. And I continue to believe. I'm not going to give up on my beliefs because it didn't work out exactly as I wanted. That's surrender. What does a leader do? What does a visionary do? I don't know why. You know what? But I pick myself up. I'm going to become a greater person. I will dig deeper. And even when God conceals himself from me and conceals his plans, I will still demonstrate that I will be an agent of why you sent me to this world, because we still are on a mission. The only thing is, this mission is now a little more difficult, or a lot more difficult. So no, we're not going to change our attitudes and our hopes. We're going to lower our sights. We'll lower our expectations. That's what happens. That's what happens to victims. They lower their expectations for love, for beauty, for all the great things they dreamt about, their dreams and aspirations and idealism from their young age, because I've been hurt too much. Lower your expectations. No. If we learned anything from the Rebbe, he never lowered his expectation once. Even when he said, I did everything, do what you can do, he was stating a fact. What do you want me to do more? Another Maimer, another Rambam, another Sikha, another Rashi. He was telling us, now is time for us to act. It's not resignation. It's always coming from a powerful, strong place. So our strength doesn't weaken because we don't know. And on the contrary, it compels us in a time of war and battle like this, adversity, to dig deeper and not sink. Now you'll say, I don't have the strength. So find others that have the strength. Join with others. Commit even when you're not in the mood. I don't have a magic pill. I don't have a trick for this. I don't have an answer why Moshiach didn't come Pesach. Of course he should have come after everything we went through. Everything we went through for thousands of years. What did the Rebbe say in the later years? Why did Moshiach not come? He said, Ich hab taka kasha. I have a question. He didn't give some excuse and some explanation, maybe one more thing to do. I have a question. That's how we address. And there's nothing wrong to realize that faith and trust are resources. They're supra-rational resources. They say, yes, I don't understand the rational, but I have something to reach to that's deeper. Because at the end of the day, your soul doesn't end with your mind. Your soul ends, I would say it's endless, but it continues after your mind and beyond your mind to transcendence, to faith, to trust, to the essence, to a deeper reality that we may never understand. God created logic. He's obviously beyond logic. But it's not irrational. It's not opposite of rational. It's just beyond. It's realizing and experiencing deeper things. That's what people who've gone through pain and trauma, that's what they experience. Now, there's so much more to talk about, but every week I still remain backed up. I really wanted to do a whole bunch of follow-ups. I underestimate how much you can do in a certain amount of time. But we will get there. We're in it together. And there's much to talk about, good things to talk about. So, I just do want to do one follow-up. Let me see here the follow-ups here. Yeah. Should we call the virus by name, someone wrote. This is more comment than question about whether to stop calling the virus by name, as you discussed last week. This happened unplanned in our home. We're seniors, and my husband isn't keen on remembering complicated names. So he, without really thinking about it, started calling this virus the Kuni virus. He later apologized and said he'd start calling it by its real name. But I asked him not to. Calling it the Kuni virus is far less threatening. It kind of calls to mind the old expression of cooties back in childhood. Anyone remember that? I don't, personally. And that childhood sense brings about more calm and trust. A couple of our friends started calling it the Kuni virus too. After hearing, it helps. Words have such power, and this virus sure isn't our crown. Yet it can remind us to turn to Him, blessed be He, with whom our true crown rests. Thank you for reading this, Rabbi, and for all your wonderful and healing offerings. May God bless and keep you. Okay, there are a few more follow-ups. I will have to do them next week. But I do want one that I did feel I have to repay it. I have to pay my debt promise I made last week. And that is the song at the end of the program. I sang a song, Stav Yapitu. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, I first heard you more than a decade ago when you were a guest on a podcast. Recently, I've been listening to your Sunday evening podcasts and find them so heartwarming. That's my life. I appreciate not only your very deep and rigorous intellectual background and knowledge, but more importantly to me, the love and heartfelt advice you give to your listeners. I was motivated to write by this week's podcast, in which you ended with a niggin from Ukraine. I don't know if I have a genetic connection to that country. I don't believe so. But the words and sounds that you sang were so soothing to me. I was deeply touched. I so appreciate the support you are giving, particularly in this difficult time of the pandemic. I consider myself spiritually connected, and I practice in the Jewish renewal format. Yet much of the advice and perspective you offer fits for me as well. Wishing you and your entire family and community all the best. Another person wrote, a friend, the singing was amazing and beautifully moving, and I noticed you too were moved. I had to shed a tear. Keep up your amazing work. You're definitely giving the Rebbe's words without compromise and without fear or intimidation. This is what the Rebbe wants and what we all need now more than ever. Ashrecha shezachisa. Thank you. And a third person writes, do you mind singing another song? It was very powerful last week, and it gives strength in addition to all your words. So, first let me then just translate the song I did sing, Stav Yapitu. It was difficult for me to translate last week. It was a song in Ukrainian that the Rebbe taught. Here is the loose translation. I started to drink on Friday. On Friday I had drunk my calf away. One must know how to be merry. One must know how to talk. Oh, how to give a just reckoning for the Master, the Lord. Oh, to justify oneself. But we drink, and we revel. And we drink wine like water, and we say together, L'chaim. And you, O Lord, please hearken to us in heaven. And the second time around when you sing it, you change Friday to Shabbos, and you train my calf away to my work away. That's a translation. Obviously, it doesn't have the power of the niggin. So let's conclude with another niggin. I'll do the niggin that comes from my heart. Another niggin that Rebbe taught, song off from Shabbos. It comes from Perek Hashira, Anim Zmiris. And remember, song really has the power to lift us with its wings to an entire different place. Use song. It's a very powerful tool in our times. Oyanim zmirois v'shirim eroig ki elecho nafshi zaroig oyanim zmirois v'shirim eroig ki elecho nafshi saroig nafshi yechamda b'tzel yadecho lo davas kol roi soidecho nafshi yechamda b'tzel yadecho lo das kol roi soidecho iriyai nanai nu iriyai ay no oh hum na na hum oh na oh ya oh na ay no oh ho na hum. This has been My Life Chassidus Applied, episode 308, every Sunday, 8 to 9 p.m. Everyone have a very freilich Lag B'Omer. May the achdus of Rashbi, the merit of Rashbi, stand up for all of us, protect us, heal us, and bring the geula hamitis v'hashlema. Be well and be strong. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by My Life, Chassidus Applied. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at chassidusapply.com/donate.